What's going on, college football fans? Welcome back to the First and Long College Football Show. It was just another sleepy day in college football land, right? Nothing to entertain you or keep you right on the edge of your seat all weekend or anything. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. All jokes aside, that was one of the best weekends of college football that I've ever seen. And it's still going on in some cases out west and things like that. But the majority of everything is wrapped up. And we're here to overreact to it tonight. It is the Week 14 Overreaction Show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you would, hit that like button for us real quick, and we'll get this thing started. If you're new to First and Long, welcome in. Please consider hitting that subscribe button. We have got live shows throughout every single week, off season, regular season, postseason, and we are getting to that time of year, guys. We're about to see our very first 12-team college football playoff. But first, we've got conference championships, and all of those pictures have came into focus for the most part here. Mason, how you doing, buddy? We've got one more conference that we're waiting to figure out what's going to happen. We've got BYU and Houston playing right now, and if BYU wins that thing, then Iowa State will be going to the Big 12 championship, right? And if Houston wins that thing, then Colorado will get a Big 12 championship berth. How you doing tonight, man? It's been a great few days of football. I know you had a great Thanksgiving meal because we shared one of those together as we usually do. So I know we both ate good on that. How you doing, man?
Yeah, still fasting since Thanksgiving. I've been trying to fast those extra pounds off. Mark, I was really afraid that you started talking about the Big 12 there as you were kicking it over to me. I was afraid that you were going to tell me to explain how BYU winning gets Arizona State or Iowa State in to face Arizona State in the Big 12 championship. I don't understand it. I'm not going to spend any more time trying to understand it. What you need to know is that if BYU wins, then Iowa State, since they beat Kansas State, are going to be playing Arizona State in the Big 12 championship game. What a crazy conference that was, and we knew that it would be going in. There's just a ton of parity. There's no more parity in any other conference than in the Big 12. Really exciting conference to watch, and now we just got to see who gets in and who gets that number 12 likely spot in the college football playoffs. But outside of that, we had upsets galore. Michigan takes down Ohio State again at the Shoe. Which is a game that I actually predicted preseason, if you recall. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
That was for Michigan,
I didn't,
by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't double down on that. I thought Michigan had no shot, like everybody else going into this game today. But they pull off the upset. South Carolina wins. We got to talk about the potential of South Carolina now being a playoff team, which is something we've been pounding the table for the past few weeks because this looks like one of the best teams in the country. I think that they absolutely deserve to get in with the win against Clemson. What else? Miami goes down to Syracuse. And we just saw Texas beat Texas A&M. It was a hell of a day. And then going back to Friday, we had Georgia play probably the best game of the year overall. Not for us as Georgia fans. I don't have any fingernails left, Mark. I was absolutely sweating through that entire game.
That made me sick.
Yeah, tough to watch, but nonetheless, we got a jam-packed show, Mark. Let's get into it. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, and we didn't even mention Tulane went down as well, and Tulane was kind of heir to the throne of Boise State spot if Boise State was to slip up. So UNLV ends up being a kind of a benefactor of that, and even kind of had, I guess, a shakeup in the Mountain West as we're going to have UNLV going to be going on the road to Boise to play for the Mountain West Conference Championship. So we got all kinds of stuff to talk about and all types of avenues to consider here for the college football playoff. We're so glad that you're here with us. Yeah, let's start off. Where should we start off? I guess we really the one that intrigued me the most, one of the most interesting ones of the day, obviously, was Ohio State going down. And look, Ohio State, unless you're an Ohio State fan, most people don't love Ohio State. And I'm not an Ohio State fan, as you can see on your screen here. Look, this was kind of sweet in a sense. I mean, it was an underdog story here, Mason. Everybody loves the underdog, and even though Michigan has been one of the most hated teams over the last couple of years, I still feel like the majority of people probably tuned into that game and were rooting for the underdog here. Look, you gotta tip your cap to Michigan. They executed a game plan similar to what Oklahoma did against Alabama. Very similar. We're not going to throw it. We refuse. We're going to run this down your throat, and we're going to play solid defense, and we're going to hopefully get a turnover or two. And that was the case. Will Howard was serving them up in the red zone today, and it was an issue. And obviously, there was tons of extracurricular activities at the end of that game. If you guys turned it, I'm sure that you've seen at least something on the bottom part of ESPN or whatever. But I mean, there was literally people being pepper sprayed at the end of that game. There was lots of things that I've never seen before this weekend. Whether you go from the Georgia Tech game to Michigan and Ohio State players being pepper sprayed by the Ohio State Patrol. I've never seen anything like what we saw this weekend here in Week 14. But specifically on this game, what did you see, Mason? I saw a really good defense for Ohio State, the same as what I've seen every single game this year. I haven't seen that defense take a break yet. But I saw an offense that I knew had some cracks in the foundation. I knew this wasn't as high flying of an offense for Ohio State as what we've come, to get used to with CJ Stroud and, some of the prolific players that they've had. And they have prolific players now. I mean, it's the best roster money can buy. But this offense is missing something. And to me, it seems like it's got to be something to do with Will Howard. What do you think, Mason?
Yeah, I was actually kind of pounding the table for Will Howard after his performance in their last game. I thought that he showed a lot of leadership capabilities against Indiana. Now, Indiana kind of proved not to be probably what we made them out to be in a sense. But I like the intangibles of Will Howard. In this game, though, it seemed like he was really trying to force some throws. Obviously, threw into some situations that he had no business throwing in, but could not get the ball going through the air. Couldn't get anything going on the ground, though. It seemed like Michigan, their defense really just bowed up in this football game, and we knew going into it that if Michigan had any shot at winning this football game, it needed to be a 13-10 sort of game. It needed to be an absolute rock fight, and it was. You saw the line for Michigan really stepping up, holding Ohio State and those two, future NFL running backs to just 77 yards, and including Will Howard and what he was able to get on the ground. 77 yards total rushing for Ohio State. They've had issues running the football all year. Didn't get any better against Michigan tonight. Credit Michigan's defense. I thought that they kind of bottled up Jeremiah Smith, held him to only 35 yards in this football game. He did get a touchdown, but only 175 yards through the air for Ohio State. You mentioned Will Howard. That's not going to get it done when you've got the best wide receiving core in the country. You got to come away with more than 175 yards through the air, unless you're going to run for 200, which obviously they didn't in this football game. Just really poor performance at home by the Buckeyes, and credit Michigan. I mean, everybody wants to put the magnifying glass on Ohio State right now, and I totally get it. But Michigan, Sharon Moore, they came in with a game plan in this football game and executed it pretty well. I mean, you did have the two turnovers by Davis Warren as well. He only had 62 yards through the air, but only threw the ball 16 times. And then you had Khalil Mullings, who is easily the best running back, I think, that Michigan has. And it kind of took them a few games this year to realize that. But he has 32 attempts on the ground, 116 yards, and a touchdown. I was really impressed by the game plan and for the most part the execution by the Wolverines. This is exactly what they wanted in a football game, and they really took it to the Buckeyes.
They definitely did. PSU Jim Buckeye in the comment section here. Y'all drop a comment about any of these games we're talking about or anything that we may miss. We'd love to conversate with you guys there. PSU Jim says Buckeyes may have the best D in the country, or at least close, and I 100% agree with that. They are really good. Their problem is the offensive play calling, and I think that there is some kind of truth to that, Jim. I do, because look at how much different the offense looked whenever they got into the hurry up going into halftime. It looked totally different. They marched right down the field and scored, and that they didn't have that urgency throughout the rest of the game. It's like and this does have Chip Kelly's fingerprints all over it. I mean, we all know what Chip Kelly likes to do. If he could just run it 75% of the time and somebody would allow him to do it, he would do it. If it was successful enough. And yeah, well, and part of the problem too, Jim, I don't think the play calling matches up with the personnel that are on the field right now. I feel like it's almost like a stubborn attempt to run the football because we all know the woes that the offensive line has had. That is the weakest unit for Ohio State in every game they step on the field for their team. It's their offensive line. So why are you putting the game on their shoulders? I don't understand that. So PSU, Jim, I think that is spot on there. And speaking of PSU, guess who benefits from all this, guys? Penn State has worked their way into the Big Ten championship game. How about that? I mean, that look, we have kind of talked about Penn State in the vein of, they've kind of been the benefactor of a schedule that avoided some of the upper echelon teams in the Big Ten this season. No more. Penn State will be going to Lucas Oil Stadium and playing in the Big Ten championship game against the Oregon Ducks. And we're going to see exactly what Penn State is made of on our neutral field there. We saw this Penn State team struggle against this Ohio State defense. And I think that I have to say this. While I don't think that Penn State is as battle tested as some other teams in the nation, I think that is, I think that that's true. Anybody could struggle against Ohio State's defense in a one-game scenario. And they were shut out, but maybe things are a little different. Because, look, we talked about it, Mason. Penn State, and they beat Maryland by 1,000,000 points today, by the way, guys. We didn't say the score to that, but they beat Maryland by 1,000,000 points. We knew that was going to be the case. This Penn State team, if you look at total offense and rushing yards and passing yards, they're at the upper echelon of the Big Ten in all of those numbers. It's putting points on the board that have been kind of the issue is, turning those into touchdowns, and that wasn't the case today. So I'm pretty excited at the prospect of being able to not see a rematch in the conference championship. I didn't really want to see a rematch, Mason. I want to see somebody else get a shot at this thing. And you know what? Ohio State may be a benefactor of this because, look, they lost. This is bad, obviously, for Ryan Day and Ohio State. Not good. Caps off to Sharon Moore and the Michigan Wolverines because they played a hell of a game today, and they deserve to win. They made Ohio State play their game, and Ryan Day's obviously got a problem beating Michigan. I mean, it's obviously an issue. I mean, in one way, shape, form, or another. I don't know what's the hang up there, but it's there. It's there. I'm excited to see a Big Ten championship game that's not a rematch. So, congratulations, Penn State. It's been a year with only one blemish, and you're next man up, and here we go. What do you think about Penn State being in the Big Ten championship game? We're going to, by the way, guys, we're going to preview that, or we're going to talk about it some tomorrow. So y'all make sure that you're on tomorrow evening. It's probably going to be around, I guess, probably around 7:30 Eastern time, somewhere after dinner time. Okay, we're going to be on talking conference championship games, talking college football playoff rankings because the one comes out tomorrow instead of Tuesday this week. But anyway, what do you think about Penn State working their way into the conference championship here, Mason? This is big. This is a big deal. This was a big domino to fall here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm anxious to break down that game between Penn State and Oregon, because I think that there could be some matchup advantages for the Nittany Lions in that game. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. But I'm excited to see Penn State in a big game, outside of Ohio State, because we really haven't seen it all season. They were the benefactor of a relatively weak schedule in the Big Ten, and we did not get to see Ohio or Oregon versus Penn State in the regular season. So I'm with you. I like the Penn State offense right now. I think that Tyler Warren has emerged. Obviously, he emerged in that USC game and pretty much single-handedly won them that football game. And he looked good today against Maryland. I think that this offense is kind of revolving around him, and Drew Aller is playing much better, and we know what they are on defense. So I'm anxious to look into the game and preview that game coming up next weekend, because I do think that there could be some matchup advantages there for the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, I mean, the end of that, just to go back to the Michigan Ohio State game, me and my wife, we were watching the end of that game, and I enjoyed the end of that game. I thought it was pretty awesome. Me and my wife were excited for Michigan and everything, and we're sitting there watching the post game interview with one of the offensive linemen for Ohio State, and next thing you know, the mob behind them just starts moving towards them, and it's just like flying around back behind them, and they're having to get up out of the way because there's bodies flying around everywhere. I've never seen anything like that. Obviously, you all know at this point, Michigan tried to go plant their flag. Y'all let me know what in the comment section. I want to know what everybody's thoughts are on this. Who's at fault here? The team planting the flag? Because I'm going to just tell y'all right now. If you don't want Michigan to plant a flag in the middle of the field, then win the game. And they won't do that. Right? That's kind of my thoughts on it. But Ryan Day's approach to the whole thing was, we have a bunch of prideful guys and we're not going to allow them to, plant a flag on our field and blah, blah, blah. Is that an excuse to go out there and punch somebody? I'm not going to punch somebody for planting a flag. I'm just not doing that. I mean, dude, there very easily could have been people that gotten arrested from this, and there might still be charges brought against somebody in this situation. This wasn't within the lines and whistles and regulation of competition in football. This was a street fight out on the field, right? There was people bleeding, people crying, what do you think, Mason? Like, over the line to plant the flag, or over the line to go try to kick somebody's ass about it on national television?
Yeah,
or probably a little bit of both, right?
It's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of both. I think that Ohio State is kind of more in the right here than Michigan. I think it's just really disrespectful to plant the flag after you get a big win. What's the point in that? Why would you do that? I think it's kind of a stupid reaction that these young men are bound to make.
I was about to say, that sounds like something we would have done, like in high school or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if
Absolutely.
little old Ola High School went and beat Henry County High School in something, we plant our little Mustang flag or something,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and there we would be in a fight for sure.
Yeah, we would have been in a fight. There's no doubt about that. You're right.
But I mean, you just don't do that. That to me is that was the initiation to the fight, right? You really should shake the other team's hand and wish them well. Go sing your fight song on their stadium. That's where you get to rub it in.
Yeah.
You get to sing your little song, in front of all their fans and whatnot who have already left the stadium, I guess. But I would say that Ohio State's probably in the right. They're a bunch of prideful people, that love their university. I don't really blame them for the most part. Now, should it have escalated to what it was? No, absolutely not. But I mean, what are you going to do? You're tussling over a flag, and I don't know. I hate that that's what the game became about, was the fight. and not so much the fact that Michigan just beat Ryan Day and Ohio State for the fourth time in a row, fourth time in 5 years.
Yeah, and Double O'Neill says in the comment section that we gotta end the flag plant, and I think that there's something to that as well. Double O. I think that you're going to see conferences come out and probably set some type of rule or fine, probably more than likely. We know what the SEC is going to do. They'll set up a fine for it, and one of these coaches will be held liable for something like that. So, I think that that's probably what needs to happen, because you're right. The whole flag pole, we saw it today. The flag got ripped off the pole. I was like, oh, now somebody's got a joust. You know what I mean? Like somebody's about to whoop somebody's ass with a flagpole. So then it turns into a whole nother weapon, and not to mention everybody's got a weapon on top of their head that's called a helmet, and those are pretty dangerous. If any of y'all are old enough to remember Miami swinging those helmets around back in the day, you can hurt some people very badly with those things. So yeah, things got carried away. I just know what my dad would have done to me. If somebody planted a flag on my field and I got mad and I tried to kick their ass over it, my dad would kick me in the ass all the way home and tell me that I should have beat him on the field and I wouldn't have to worry about it. I know that that's what my dad would have told me. But I think you're right. There's issues on both sides of that. And we saw it all over the country today, guys. We saw Arizona State stuck their little, trident in Arizona's turf there or whatever, or in their grass, and that caused a whole brouhaha. And there was a brouhaha at the Alabama-Auburn game at the end of it. So this was a record weekend for fistfights along sidelines and things like that. All right, let's keep it going. Michigan wins 13-10 for the fourth year in a row. We'll talk more about what this means for Ryan Day in coming days. We're going to have time to kind of dissect more of these kind of topics. By the way, we've already got coaching moves, Mason, and I'm not going to sit here and dwell on this, but Gus Malzahn is now the offensive coordinator at Florida State. How about that? And so this makes total sense, because guess what he's going to do? He's going to bring half of those players with him to Florida State. So Florida State needed a bunch of offensive players, and they're going to get them. So it's going to be a whole new Florida State team next year, and maybe they'll win. Maybe they'll win a few more games. All right, Ohio State, stick a fork in you. You're done for the week. We'll talk about you later. Clemson goes down to South Carolina. Mason, this was a hell of a football game. I mean, gosh, I really enjoyed watching this one. And I had a couple other games on at the same time just because it was so action-packed today. I was complaining about this one not being able to be played on Friday. If y'all don't know, Dabo turned this down for Friday night. This was supposed to be a Friday primetime game. Dabo turned it down, said, no, can't do that here in Clemson. Small town, can't handle it logistically, blah, blah, blah. So it's got to be Saturday at noon, or, it's just got to be Saturday at noon. So I was kind of cussing that. Look, the crowd was into it. Everybody was 100% on board. It was a loud stadium. The intensity was there. There was more intensity at this noon game than any of the ones that I've seen, and that just has to do with rivalry week, man. This week, every stadium just had a different kind of buzz to it this week. It was crazy. South Carolina and Lenora Sellers were able to take care of business 17-14 over Clemson, scored a touchdown very late to go ahead. I'm sure all of you watched this game because it was one of the biggest ones of the week. South Carolina cashed in for Mason and I. Cha-ching! But Lenora Sellers hit a whole nother gear this weekend. I've never seen that man run that fast. Lenora Sellers is going to be a problem. Now, is he seeing the field 100%? Is he seeing the field, like a veteran? No, I wouldn't say that. But, man, he's already got the size. And I'm sure he's probably just going to bulk up a little bit more. But he's got a nice little suit of armor on him. He is fast as lightning at times, and just can hit that extra gear. He gives that South Carolina offense a whole nother element. Very exciting stuff. South Carolina Gamecocks fans have got to be ecstatic. Mason, you said it. You feel like they deserve to be in the college football playoff. We'll see how that kind of works out. South Carolina looked good again, and I thought Clemson came out and punched him in the mouth at first, but South Carolina figured out a way to adapt and figured out a way to win it at the end, and that's what good teams do. South Carolina's a good team this year.
Yeah, and what was really so surprising is that South Carolina won this game without their ace, right? They had 1 sack and 3 tackles for a loss in this football game. I did not have that on my bingo card. Like I thought that South Carolina, if they won this football game, it would have been because of the defense, getting a lot of pressure on Cade Klubnik. Now they brought pressure, but ultimately they didn't get to him. They didn't get a lot of stops in the backfield or anything like that. That they weren't as disruptive as we've seen South Carolina be in the past. I thought that they would be able to get after this offensive line for Clemson a little bit more than they did. It was actually Clemson's defense that showed up. They had 3 sacks and 6 tackles for a loss. But credit South Carolina's offense. I mean, able to get it done on the ground in this one, 267 yards on the ground. That's just well, with 166 coming from your quarterback, it's just a hell of a day. And Lenore Sellers just absolutely put this team on his back. Had the only 2 touchdowns for his team here, and is, like you said, an absolute problem. Not a lot going through the air. 164 yards, 13 to 21. Did have a pick, but you could see a spark from him and what it does to this football team. And it carried over into the defense. They get an interception at the end of the football game when when Clemson was driving. I was really starting to think that they were going to give this one up on that last drive there by Clemson. I thought Klubnik, kind of did what he needed to do up until the very end, where he overthrows his receiver and South Carolina takes advantage of it. But yeah, credit South Carolina for being opportunistic on the back end of that defense. For as good as South Carolina's pass rush is, and they've stopped the run pretty well, I would say, for most of the year. But I really like the back end of the defense. I think that they're doing a great job, and just as a whole, the South Carolina defense is really solid. Wasn't their best game today, but they found a way to win it in a rivalry game, and carry on. I mean, I think if I'm the committee looking at South Carolina, I know that they lost to Alabama. I know that they lost to Ole Miss, right? Both of those teams have just as many losses as South Carolina does. But how much do you weigh the back half of this season? And if you weigh that with a little bit more of a scale than you do the first half of the season, I think you give South Carolina the edge because they're playing phenomenal football. They've won 6 in a row now and look like one of the best teams in college football. They passed the eye test, and I think that the committee is going to give them the benefit of the doubt. We have to wait and see what the conference championships look like, and we have to wait and see how the committee views teams that play in the conference championship. Because now, if Clemson goes down to SMU and or goes and faces SMU and beats SMU, are they going to drop SMU all the way out? I don't know, and that's something we didn't really cover. But Miami goes down to Syracuse obviously this weekend, so Clemson is going to be in the ACC championship game now facing SMU. If Clemson wins that football game, obviously they're in. Can you really take SMU out and insert a South Carolina or an Alabama if SMU loses?
Well, and here's my thing too. I mean, not to get away from South Carolina, Clemson here, but what happens if Penn State goes and faces off with Oregon and they lose to Oregon? What is Penn State pointing to as that win? I mean, I know Illinois would be a ranked win there, but what do you point to at that point? And what does the College Football Playoff Committee think about that loss, considering you don't really have a win, to really hang your hat on like some of these other teams do? Indiana's kind of in that same boat, but Indiana's not at chance of losing another game. Indiana won again today, scored 66 points, absolutely beat the ever-living stew out of Purdue like they owed them money. So Indiana, just back to what they do and like a military style ass whooping on everybody they've played except for Ohio State this season. So, and quite honestly, I'd like to see Indiana and Ohio State play again. I felt like some things really definitely did not go Indiana's way in that one. I'm not saying they'd win it next time they played, but with that being said, we still got some chances. You're right, Mason. That's a really good point with the whole Clemson thing because obviously Clemson wins the ACC championship. They're in the playoff in that with that bye spot. And what does that do? What does that do to SMU? I'm hard. It'd be hard for me to believe that the College Football Playoff Committee would be able to drop them out that far.
Well, and in comparison to the Penn State argument, SMU has beaten a ranked Louisville and a ranked Pitt team decidedly. So, that they've got a couple of ranked wins. Their only loss was a 3-point loss to BYU, who's been a ranked team for most of this year. I just, in comparison to Penn State, I think that SMU would have a stronger case.
Matt Shrimp, thanks for watching, Matt. He says, well, if Clemson beats SMU, I think you could make a pretty easy assumption that SC is better than SMU. I mean, I can make that assumption now, but the whole premise that we're kind of basing this on is the fact that in years past, the thought was always you'd get the benefit of the doubt if the loss in question is one that is taken in a conference championship setting because you're playing an extra game that everybody else isn't playing, and like Mason has kind of explained with Georgia, say Georgia goes to SEC well, they are going to the SEC championship, but say they lose that game to Texas, Georgia's still got, 10 wins. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not going to count that loss against Georgia. So I'm interested to see what that does. Now, if SMU beats Clemson, obviously Clemson's just out of the picture. Personally, just first getting my eyes on it, I have not looked at all the numbers and all the analysis and things like that yet. We're going to do that this week. We're going to do some of it Sunday. We're going to do some of it Tuesday. So you guys make sure you're tuned in. But I like SMU over Clemson, personally.
South Carolina? Or you're saying in the ACC championship?
In the ACC championship. Okay. I think SMU is going to beat them. So I don't think that it's going to be I don't think this will be I think this will all be a moot point, basically.
I hope so.
Because I do what?
I said I hope so. This season has already been so chaotic. Like, can we have something go the way that it's supposed to go? It makes it so hard to predict. It makes us look like fools sometimes. But it wouldn't surprise me if Clemson ends up winning.
All right, let's go to Miami next because James Palmieri, thanks for watching, James. I certainly do appreciate it. He says, "Can we all agree Miami is out?" That's a good question, James. I'm glad that you brought that up because Miami is a team that we certainly need to look at that. So let's look. Where were they ranked? They were ranked at the 6th spot going into this one tonight. And they're not going to be playing for an ACC championship. Look, let's talk about the game for a second. And I see some people saying, yes, Miami should be out. And then SMU should beat Clemson pretty easily. But Miami and Syracuse, we saw all types of situations this weekend, again, where analytics is just absolutely killing some of these teams. Teams going for it on 4th down when they don't freaking need to. Teams going for 2-point conversions when it makes absolutely no damn sense in the world. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum where you've got Miami here who can't stop a nosebleed on defense, by the way. So there's no logic in what I'm about to say. But Miami decides with just a handful of minutes left in the football game and they need a touchdown to tie it, that they're going to kick a field goal. They've got the best offense in the country, in my opinion, and a terrible defense. And for some reason, Mario Cristobal decides that he's going to kick a field goal and expect to be able to get that football back and put the game in his defense's hands. This just seems like an absolutely just numb to the feeling of the game, the momentum, the identity of this football team. I mean, anybody who's watched Miami this year, you know how good this offense is. You can't deny that. It's very good. But the defense has just been suspect throughout the entire season. Why are you putting them in that position? Syracuse just runs the clock out. I mean, it was predictable. It was very predictable. I think this was a coaching blunder here. I really do. I think you go for it. You've got a Heisman candidate there. You've got some of the best wide receivers in the country, some of the best running backs. What are you doing? Put it in their hands and let them go win this thing. I know hindsight's 2020 because I mean they lost the game, but they couldn't stop Syracuse from the second quarter through the rest of the game. So I don't know what made them think that they were going to be able to do that. What were your thoughts on that, Mason? I think that's a terrible decision. It's not quite as terrible as running the football instead of kneeling it like last year and then fumbling it and letting Georgia Tech beat you. It's not that bad, but this is another one of those that I've just put on Mario Cristobal's resume here and say, what the hell happened?
Yeah, and admittedly, I wasn't paying attention to this game very closely. I thought that Miami
Well, y'all
was
just
going to
take
win
my
it
word for it.
handedly. Yeah, I know, right? I saw they were up 14-0 early, and I thought, yeah, this is about what I expected. And I kind of tuned out on my split screen. I couldn't get that one. That split screen, that multi-view game involved with the other two that I wanted to watch, so I wasn't able to keep eyes on this game. But I mean, it seems like Miami's offense was able to move the football throughout the majority of this football game. So I don't really know. I don't really know why Cristobal would choose to kick a field goal down 7 points going in the fourth quarter there. But at the same time, it is Mario Cristobal. It kind of does make sense. You know, looking at Miami this year, we had high hopes for them going into this season. During the preseason, we saw what they did on the defensive side of the football, bringing in a front seven that was supposed to be the best in the ACC, and that just really never really matriculated to what we thought they would be. But at the same time, Miami is one of those teams. I'll say Ole Miss was a team that's actually really comparable as far as how high we felt about them going into the season. But they're one of those brands right now in college football that you look at and you say they're going to find a way to screw this up at some point, and they did just that. Cristobal still has issues in game making decisions. And I'm starting to believe that he's going to do this for the rest of his career, however long that lasts at Miami. But this was man, you really lost this football game more so than Syracuse won it. Not to take anything away from Syracuse. I
Yeah, great
really
season for Syracuse, man.
hell of a
Fran
season. I
Brown.
mean,
Hey, I'm a
can
Georgia Bulldog. You know, I love college football first and foremost, but I'm a Georgia Bulldog. Fran Brown was with our team last year, so
yeah.
you know, salute to you, sir. It seems like he's doing a good job over there. And Kyle McCord, man, he makes some throws that sometimes where I'm just like, is he gonna, is he gonna like maybe play a little bit of practice squad or maybe a little bit for backup for an NFL team or something? I don't know, man. This guy's got some arm talent.
Yeah.
It's and we all know it has nothing to do with what you do on the field. I mean, Anthony Richardson got drafted in the first round. Um, you know, so it's got to do with the all the prerequisites, right? The arm strength, the size, and things like that. And I'm no NFL expert, but I see him make throws sometimes. I'm like, damn, okay.
Yep.
He's got an arsenal, and he's gotten a lot better at picking his spots, no doubt. Um, Congrats to Syracuse, 42-38 over Miami. Mason, so what do you think? Is Miami out of the what do you think? They're out of the playoff?
I think that they're out. I mean, you look at their schedule. I got it pulled up here. Beat Florida at the beginning of the year handedly when
Hey,
Florida
and
was just
let
absolutely
me
terrible.
while you pull that up, let me explain this to Double O because we explained this at the top of the show, Double O, but because Double O was commenting, he said that if BYU wins, they'll be in the Big 12. And I know this is really confusing, but we said at BYU, if they win today, then Iowa State's in the Big 12 championship. If Houston beats BYU today, then Colorado's in the Big 12 championship. But BYU themselves, they are not in the
Yeah.
Big 12 championship, period, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
And
And
Double O says, my brain hurts. Laugh my ass off. Yeah, I feel you, dude.
yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah.
This is why we need divisions. That's just my opinion, not popular, but I think it's why we needed them. But anyway, sorry, Mason.
No, I mean, going back to Miami, you look at their losses to Georgia Tech and Syracuse, right? not exactly quality losses in the committee's eyes, I think. And then their wins. What are you pointing to as a win that Miami has that justifies them going in over some other 2-loss teams, over a 3-loss South Carolina? I can't find them. I mean, Louisville looks like their best win, and they won that game by 7 points.
Yeah.
I don't see how you put Miami in, and I know that they're a great offense and pass the eye test in a lot of ways, but based off of their record, I would have them out right now.
Yep. Yep. All right. We'll kind of read through some of these, and we can kind of stop and talk about them. Not every game was an upset. Let's talk about the Texas A&M game that we just saw. Texas was able to win this thing 17-7, Mason, but Texas was shut out in the second half of this game. Now, I thought Texas took a very conservative approach to this football game, and I thought Texas A&M at times did a pretty good job of daring Texas to run it. And to Texas's credit, they ran the ball very effectively tonight. A couple 100 yards on the ground. Look, these rivalry games, you can almost go look at every single one of these games. Whoever won the Russian battle won these games, just about, except for Georgia Tech. That was not the case in that one. I don't know how the hell Georgia won that game. We'll get to it in a minute. I still don't even understand how Georgia won that one, but pulled some magic out of their butt. Texas won 17-7 over Texas A&M. We talked about this on the phone a little bit ago. It may have been halftime or third quarter or something, and Marcel Reed he's just not seeing the whole field right now, and it's not his fault. I mean, he's young, man. He's so young, and he needs about 20 pounds of armor on him. He's thin as a rail. He's got to gain a little bit of weight. He was getting ragdolled out there a little bit. So he's going to have to get a little bit of weight on him. It was just a tough situation here for Texas A&M. This was my worst bet of the weekend, thinking that Texas A&M was going to be able to keep it close because, Mason, looking back at it, our bets had a lot to do with the fact that it was being played at Kyle Field. I mean, in all honesty, it had a lot to do with that. It had less to do with the teams. We knew what Texas A&M was. We saw what South Carolina absolutely dismantled this team, right, to the tune of much more than 10 points. So I come away with this with really the same takeaways that I've had when talking about and my thoughts on Texas, the Longhorns. I don't think this is an elite offense. I think it's good. I just think it's good. I don't think it's elite. I think they lost a lot at wide receiver last year, and I know the depth is through the roof. I know they've got tons of depth, and they've got 3 sets of wide receivers, and I get all that, but there ain't not 2 of them that are nearly as good as the wide receivers that they had last year, and Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell and all those guys. Now Gunnar Helm he's awesome, and this defense for Texas is really good. So I don't want to take anything away from them, but Texas is a defensive-led football team at this point. They're not an offensive, just like a lot of the teams that we've seen in the country. Which one of these teams is an offensive-led football team at this point? SMU? There's like very few. Miami, most of them are defensive-led, and Texas, I don't think, is an exception to that. Kwiatkowski's got a hell of a defense going here. He's the defensive coordinator for the Longhorns. I like every level of this defense. I think that they could be exploited up the middle a little bit if the right team got a hold of them. But, that's nitpicking, man. I think this is a really, really solid unit. And I think the offense leaves a little bit to be desired, but Quentin, the running back, isn't that his name? His last name, Quentin? Isn't that what it was?
It's Quintravion.
Yeah, that guy.
Wisner.
Yeah, I was thinking Quintravion. Wisner has gotten a lot better as the seasons went on. I have to say that. He ran really well tonight. I really liked what I saw out of him. And Jaden Blue with the really, really nice catch in the back corner of the end zone. They've done a good job covering up their deficiencies at the running back position. But I don't know, man. I just they leave a little bit to be desired for me as far as offensively, but I think Texas is one of the best 10 teams in the country. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Well, speaking of that catch in the end zone, I don't think it was a catch, Mark. And nobody said it in the broadcast. I don't know why, but the defender knocked the ball out before he hit the ground. The ball was being juggled and then it fell to the ground. He did not complete the catch all the way down to the ground. I don't know. Maybe I'm just missing something there, but it's not like he got 2 feet in, right? He didn't have possession and then got hit out of bounds and then dropped it. He caught the ball as he was going down. The defender hit the ball and it was out before he hit. That was not a touchdown in my opinion. You look at and I'm kind of defending my bet here in a sense, but Texas A&M goes for it on 4th and goal twice, and they come up empty-handed. If they convert one of those, it's a cover. But also the flip side to that is Texas turned the ball over in the red zone twice, and one of them was a pick six. So I get that we can't you got to have it both ways if the game was played perfectly. But yeah, I mean, looking at this game, it really just came down to the fact that, like you said, Texas was slightly better on offense, and the score reflected that. Both defenses played a hell of a game. I thought that Texas A&M, they got gashed a little bit, which is tough not to do against Texas's offense. I think at some point, a lot of those screen passes they're going to break free. That's what Sarkisian does better than anybody else in the country, and as good as most of the pro offensive coordinators, mind you. But really, to me, Texas A&M just didn't have the playmakers. I think if Le'Veon Moss was playing in this football game, it could have been a little bit different. They could have gotten one of those fourth and goal, touchdowns converted, or could have driven the football a little bit more and got themselves in 3rd and short a little bit more than they were. It seemed like there was just too much pressure put on Marcel Reed in this football game for a young quarterback to be able to handle. I like Marcel. I think that he's going to be a good quarterback, but right now, he wasn't supposed to be the guy. It was supposed to be Connor Wegman, and he just physically didn't fit the billing, I think. Marcel Reed has the physical traits, but he needs that experience. And I think in the coming years he'll be a threat for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. Like I said, he just needs experience. I mean, there's no simulation. You can't go step into some simulator and get reps. I mean, there's nothing like getting out there and getting hit a little bit, and feeling that and making corrections for it. I mean, he got popped a few times, and like I said, he's got to gain some weight because you can't be that thin and be a running quarterback in the SEC, unless he just you got to get out of bounds every single time or get down. He's got to get better at that. And I know today was to get into a championship, so he's putting his body on the line. But look, I think it was a good season for Texas A&M. First year coach, I think it was a good season. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was above average necessarily. I think it was adequate. And all you can do is get into a game like this and control your own destiny, and that's exactly what Texas A&M did. And hey, they put up a little bit of fight in the second half of this thing. We'll talk more about Texas this week, guys, as the week goes on. Let's keep it going here. Notre Dame, USC. I thought this one was interesting. USC hung around in there, Mason. We called this game about perfect for the week. We thought Notre Dame would end up, hitting their stride at the end, but we thought it'd be a higher scoring game than what the experts were predicting. And lo and behold, this thing went way over. And that was a pretty good call on that one. Notre Dame did what Notre Dame does in this game. They were more physical, and it wasn't perfect in all facets, but 258 yards rushing can cover up, some deficiencies elsewhere. And I thought Riley Leonard showed some promise throwing the football a little bit, especially early in this game. It wasn't 178 yards passing. That's not like amazing, but it'll do for a running
Well,
offense like Notre Dame.
23 of those yards came from Tyler Buckner. So let's not forget Tyler Buckner got in this football game. The former Alabama quarterback, the former lacrosse player that got in there and was 1-for-1 with 23 yards. I thought that was a interesting little stat line there, but not to overtake your take here. But Riley Leonard ended up with 155 yards. That's a good day for him, I think.
That's fine. That's what they need out of him. I mean, he's never going to be a guy that throws for 300 yards a game. If he ever does, then God bless us all. I mean, because we'll all be screwed, right? If Riley Leonard could ever figure out how to compose an offense and get the ball over the top like that, but Southern Cal was able to throw the football in this game, Mason. So I'm they and USC pressed at the end of this thing, and you see the final score on your screen, guys, 49-35. Notre Dame ends up winning. USC starts pressing at the end and provided a couple of touchdowns here for Notre Dame. I mean, this thing was tight right to the end. And did you see it? Did you see the long pick sixes in this one at the end? Notre Dame had two of them back to back within a minute and a half of one another, and USC sitting there knocking on the door, and it was the final curtain for the Trojans, and really kind of symbolic of what their season has kind of been this season, going into the Big Ten and taking your lumps, right? USC has certainly done that. 6-win Lincoln Riley team. We'll have to see what this offseason means for Lincoln Riley and the USC Trojans. I always feel like he has one foot out the door somewhere into the NFL, but I don't know that to be a fact. So we'll keep eyes and ears out for that type of thing as the offseason approaches us. But USC will be going bowling, and Notre Dame will be in the college football playoff. So this was a big win for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Congratulations to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This was not an easy game. This was not an easy last game to go across the country and face what is one of the better passing attacks in the country, even though nobody wants to hear it because it's a 6-win team. Facts are the facts, and we talked about it this past week. But Notre Dame did exactly what they needed to do and got a couple of defensive scores at the end to make it look pretty.
Yeah, I think, looking at if you take the score out of it and you look at the stat lines, you're thinking USC won this game at home, outrushed, or not outrushed, but outgained Notre Dame. Really rushed the ball really well, almost had 200 yards on the ground. Really impressive in both facets. I thought that Lincoln Riley had a great game plan on the offensive side. Had a couple of drops from his receivers as well, that if they hold on to the ball, maybe we're talking about a different outcome. But I was really impressed with USC and how they hung in this football game. Had Maeva not thrown those two pick sixes, we're talking about a football game here that could have gone USC's way, especially if they went to overtime at home. You always favor the home team in those situations. So I thought that this was a really strong performance by the Trojans, and I also thought that it really showed some blemishes in the armor for this Notre Dame defense. So for wherever they end up in the playoffs, if they go up against an elite offense, I think that they can be had. 35 points given up is a ton of points, especially in a game where you also scored 49. There was a lot of yards given up because you're looking at an offense that's scoring right for Notre Dame. And so it's cutting down on the play clock for the most part, or should be, and yet USC was able to gash them for 35 points. I've been talking up Notre Dame's defense for a long time. I thought that they would be able to have an answer for the Trojans here, and they just did not up until the very end with the two pick sixes there. Opportunistic, I guess, is the word for the Notre Dame defense here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. That it wasn't a great showing. Indy Nation was talking about that Notre Dame defense in the comment section, and it has been really good. But we've talked about going into this game, guys. They had not played a ton of good passing attacks, and we saw one today. I felt like Morrison being out, I think that it kind of showed up a little bit more today. Like the picks are nice at the end of the game; those are great. Obviously, I mean those are fantastic, but those are obvious passing situations, that USC is in, and you're not going to get as obvious as that in the heat of a playoff game. So anyway, good win for Notre Dame. There's no doubt about that. Scored 49 points total and went on the road all the way across the country and did that. That's outstanding. We'll see who Notre Dame gets matched up with going here into the 12-team college football playoff because they'll certainly be there. So congratulations to the Leprechauns. Tennessee took care of Vanderbilt. This game went a lot like we talked about this week as well, Mason. Tennessee was able to cover the spread here, and that was nice for me, who had bet on Tennessee. And the total went over, which was also nice because I bet on that as well. 36-23, Tennessee wins. Vandy jumped up quick on this thing, man. Vandy jumped out the gate 14-0 before I could even turn the channel to this game. I was like, whoa, oh no, here we go. Because Vanderbilt runs a eat up the clock, time of possession style offense. I thought, damn, this ain't good. And Tennessee hasn't been known for scoring quickly this year either. They've been more of a kind of try to cut you up and down the field and run the football type of team. I was proud of Tennessee today. They hit some explosive plays in the passing game, and that was the difference in this football game. That was the difference, and that is exactly what we talked about on the show this past week. It was, we know what we're getting out of the Tennessee running game. We know what we're getting out of the Tennessee run defense. We know all that stuff. That's been pretty consistent week to week. It's been the hitting of the explosive plays just in general, but mainly through the passing game that we have said has been kind of the last piece of the puzzle for this offense. We saw it enough today. Tennessee scores 36 points. Tennessee's a tough little ball club just because of the way that they set up on that defensive line, and we knew this would be a tough game for Vanderbilt. What did you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. The explosive plays is the missing piece, the missing ingredient for this Tennessee football team. I think if they hit a couple against Georgia, that game looks very different, but they didn't. And they've sputtered at times. That was the issue in their loss to Arkansas. Did not hit the explosive plays. When you get into a football game with some of these teams that you're not going to be able to keep under 20 points or 25 points, which they've done for basically every game this year outside of the Georgia game, you get into these sort of shootouts, and you kind of expect Tennessee and Heupel's offense to do well in those situations, but that hasn't been the case so far with Nico. I think he's a great quarterback and has great talent, but he's been missing on a lot of those deep balls, and tonight he hit a few. And with their rushing attack, they had 281 yards on the ground tonight. With that sort of rushing attack and rushing game, if you can hit two or three of those plays, it's really going to set your offense up really well. I like the tight end play a lot. Miles Kitzelman had another great game, or I say great. He had 2 catches for 33 yards and a touchdown, but he was those 2 catches meant a lot in this game. And but Dylan Sampson, once again, 25 carries, 178 yards on the ground. Probably didn't get enough Heisman talk throughout this year, as much as he should have. But with this rushing attack and the defense, who kind of got gashed here, but most of those points came early. Vandy scored 17 in the first quarter, and you're thinking, here we go. This might be another game, kind of like Georgia and Georgia Tech was. But then in the middle 2 quarters, second and third, they shut out Vanderbilt and kind of iced this one and put them away. Really, when Tennessee got the touchdown and on their last drive in the second half, that's when I started thinking, all right, yeah, here we go. This is going to get ugly. And it kind of did. I mean, you give up 6 points at the end of the game to Vanderbilt, only score 3 in the fourth quarter. But credit Nico for hitting those big plays, getting their team back on top. And then once Tennessee is ahead of you, it's really easy for them to win the football game. Similar to Vanderbilt, when Tennessee wants to, they can really speed the game up, run the football, take a lot of time off the clock, and then on the flip side, their defense is absolutely stout. So when you give up when you're up 2 scores and you're Tennessee, you feel pretty good about your chances to win those football games, and they did tonight.
The wise man in the comment section said Sampson should have been at the very least in the Doak Walker conversation. I certainly think he's underrated. That spin move is sick to death. That is one of the best spin moves in the game, no doubt about it. Very, very fun to watch him and tough to tackle him. He just kind of squirts out. I don't know. He's slippery, man, that guy. Hard to get a square hit on him. I like a running back like that. I really like Sampson, no doubt. All right, let's keep it going here. Let's talk Alabama, right? Or just I'm going down the list here. So SMU took care of Cal 38-6. We're not going to discuss that. There's no need to discuss it. SMU is a good team, y'all, and they're going to be facing off against Clemson in the ACC championship. And I feel like SMU will be favored in that one. Don't you think, Mason? I feel like they will be.
I think so.
I feel like they should be. If they're not, I'm going to bet on them. Alabama takes care of Auburn. I've been kind of wanting to talk about this one for a second here. Auburn just absolutely blew it. I mean, I don't know if y'all watched this game or not. I'd imagine maybe some people that we've got some of you guys from way out west and in the Midwest and things like that. Maybe this game wasn't a big deal because there wasn't necessarily college football playoff implications, although Alabama's right on the doorstep. So we'll kind of ask that question. You guys let me know in the comment section, is Alabama in? But Auburn blew it. Auburn got Alabama to turn the ball over, 4 times in the first half of this game and couldn't capitalize for crap. Scored 6 points in the first half, Auburn did. And Mason, we talked about it. This game went exactly how Auburn needed it to go in the beginning of this game. I mean, Jalen Milroe, he kind of runs around a little bit and scores the first touchdown of the game with his feet, and yet you got to figure he's going to be able to do that a little bit. But the turnovers, Auburn is not able to capitalize on them. They haven't been able to get those turnovers all year. That was our thing. We said, if Auburn can get these turnovers, it's going to give them the advantage that they need to be able to run their system. Well, then they get in the red zone, they can't freaking score. And not to mention, they keep going for it over and over again on 4th down. Take the points. At the time that you're doing this in the game, you're not down by 2 touchdowns the whole game. This game was close there for a little bit. Why are we going for touchdowns? Why is it that now all of a sudden, whenever you get inside the 35-yard line, you have to score a touchdown? Well, we made it all the way down here. You can make it again. You don't just get one trip down there, dude. I don't understand what these coaches are doing. And I know what it is. We've talked about it ad nauseum. I know other shows have talked about it ad nauseum, but it's the damn analytics. Put the analytics sheets up. You guys are getting paid $7, $8, $9, $10 million a year. I don't want to know what the sheet wants to do. I want to know what the $10 million a year guy wants to do. That's why you're here. And Hugh Freeze just continues to. I mean, this ain't the first year anymore, man. This ain't the first year he's at this program. This is his second year with a quarterback who's got tons of experience, beyond Auburn, but at Michigan State before he came to Auburn. So I don't know what gives here, man. Auburn has got some serious issues. And I don't know if they partied all week, after beating Texas A&M or what. I don't know what happened, but just terrible game management and just a total absolute failure by the Auburn Tigers to convert. Alabama did not play well enough to win this football game, but they did anyway. Congratulations to Alabama. They're right on the precipice of the college football playoff. Auburn, you're dead to me. What do you think, Mason?
I agree. You early in the football game, it's the first quarter. You get the ball. You get a turnover, get the ball. You're driving. It's 4th and goal. kick a field goal, right? Get some points on the board. Get you're I get it. You're on the road in this game, and maybe that was a little bit of the decision making there from Hugh Freeze. But at that point, it's still a ball game. You're going to go up 3-0. It's still 0-0 at this point. So I say at that point, kick a field goal. Now going into half when they're in a similar situation, I didn't agree with kicking a field goal because at that point you're down, right? You kind of start to feel the game slipping away at that point. Now, if you had kicked a field goal earlier,
That's what I was about to say. Yeah.
right, you would kick a field goal right there. But now you got to double down and go for the touchdown, and he kicks a field goal instead. And it's like, well, dude,
And you look like a double idiot.
if you need to double down on the freaking touchdown opportunities there. Give yourself another chance to get back in this football game. But after he missed that, all the momentum was gone. I think I don't know, man. I kind of feel like he's starting to lose the locker room here a little bit because you saw Jacquez Hunter on the sideline, kind of like I don't know. I'm still going to go in there and run the football, and maybe we can get back in this thing. But you got one of the best running backs in the SEC, and I thought that they really underutilized him. And then you're driving and you throw a trick play out there and give it to your running back, except you ask him to throw the football, and it's like, dude, why are we not just running him? I couldn't figure that out.
And why in the world did Auburn not come out and run more read option with the quarterback today? I can't. What are you losing with Peyton Thorne? What are you worried about? Because if you don't win today, they didn't win today, by the way, obviously, you're not even going bowling. So Peyton Thorne is gone. That's it for him. Yeah. So run him. And he did run some. I'm not saying he didn't run any. I'm just saying that read option stuff that they were running last year with him and Jarquez, I know they know how to run it. They just ran it last year. They did it against Georgia. Remember? They ran for like 200 and something yards on Georgia last year with that. Why in the world? I thought in the back of my head, I put like $10 on Auburn on the money line. And I really thought that they were going to break that out on them. Kind of like Georgia Tech did on Georgia. Now, Georgia Tech runs that stuff pretty often throughout the season, but we'll go ahead and transition over to the Georgia Tech game now, I guess. But since we're talking about read option, Georgia Tech absolutely read optioned Georgia to death in this football game. From the very jump, Georgia Tech jumped all over the Dogs, 17-0 going into halftime, and Georgia just seemingly had no answer. Every time Georgia would move down the field, and Georgia had no problem moving the football down the field for the most part, but they'd turn it over, and it wasn't Carson Beck. Carson Beck, third game in a row without turning the ball over. Congratulations to you, Carson, and he's making some impressive throws right now, no doubt. But it's other people now fumbling the football. Nate Frazier, I love Nate Frazier. I love his explosiveness. I love his cat-like quickness to find the hole and get upfield into the second level. But every time I see him running in traffic, he has one arm on the ball. Now, towards the end of the game, somebody obviously told him on the sideline to, get two hands on that ball whenever you're about to get contact. But I get nervous every time he carries it. When he fumbled in this game. So mistakes by Georgia. And then all of a sudden in the second half of this game, Georgia just came roaring back really towards the end of the game. And Dan Jackson coming in and hitting Haynes King right in the chest, right in the hole, really was the play that changed this game and caused him to fumble. Georgia gets the football, scores almost immediately, right? And here we go to overtime. I was that close to turning on a camera out here because everybody in my house had went to sleep. Everybody was bummed out. Everybody thought we had already came to the conclusion that Georgia was losing this weekend. So everybody in the house went to sleep. The baby's asleep in there. So I came on out to the garage and turned my heater on and turned my TV on out here. And I acted like an absolute idiot out here, dude. I mean, I should have had it on camera. I don't know why I didn't turn it on. I said, no, I'm not doing that. That's gay. I don't want to do that. I don't want to film myself. That's stupid. And then all that happened, all that developed. And I was like, damn it. I wish I had that on camera. I mean, because that was the wildest game that my team has ever been a part of, first of all. But that's got to be one of the wilder games in college football history. I know it's the second longest one, but I've just never really been a part of anything like that. Mason, by the eighth overtime, it was like I didn't even have any adrenaline left.
Yeah.
I was calm as a cucumber by the eighth overtime. I didn't have anything left. What did you think about that, sucker? We were texting kind of as the game was going on, but Georgia finally figured out a way to get it done in this game, and Georgia did everything against what we said they needed to do in this game to make sure that Georgia Tech doesn't win it. Georgia basically, like I said, they did it. They let them control time of possession. They let them run the football. They let them hit the big plays in the pass game. I don't know how Georgia won this game, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, credit the defense for making adjustments the second half. Once again, you need a second half comeback to win this game. It's really a fourth quarter comeback for Georgia. They scored 21 of their 27 points in regulation in the fourth quarter. But I mean, like you said, the first half, it was either receivers dropping the ball, which has been a bugaboo for this team all season, or players putting the ball on the ground. Nate Frazier had a fumble. Dominic Lovett had a fumble when Georgia was driving. And it seemed like that Georgia would not get out of their own way for this entire game until they didn't. And Georgia Tech made one mistake, and my gosh, Haynes King was just absolutely a punching bag in this football game. I mean, the guy was phenomenal. Had 300 yards through the air, another 110 on the ground, 5 total touchdowns. Just really put the team on his back. After we weren't even sure if he was going to play. I mean, he's been out for the past 2 weeks with a shoulder issue. Seemed like he was able to play through it and play at a really high level. I was really impressed by him, but made one mistake, and it really wasn't even his mistake. It was a hell of a play by Dan Jackson. Really heads up play there. Really smart play by Dan Jackson. He gets the ball on the ground. Georgia obviously able to get on that football. I thought it was a really gritty performance by Georgia, and I would have hated if Georgia lost this football game somehow, because when and I didn't really realize this until the ESPN crew was kind of going through these stats or whatever. But this senior class for Georgia had never lost a rivalry game, had never lost a game at home, had never. Well, I guess it was just those two. Never lost a rivalry game, so they beat Tennessee every year, beat Florida every year, beat Auburn every year, beat the Yellow Jackets every year, and didn't lose a home game. It's just really impressive how fitting of an ending for that class to go out
They'll never
in
forget
that
it, man.
fashion. Yeah, but it would have been a real stinker for the class at the 10-year reunion if they didn't get over this one and find a way to win it. It's really just a historic game. I don't know what else to say about it. I think that there will be some adjustment to the overtime rules once again. That in I guess it was 2018. You had the LSU Texas A&M game that caused these new changes. Well, now you see the Georgia Tech game, and I think it is going to spark some conversation at least to maybe change this up once again. I would be surprised if they go back to the old way, but something definitely needs to change here because this was a situation where I don't necessarily think that the better team won in this football game. I thought that Tech kind of outplayed Georgia throughout most of this game. And I would have liked to have seen it end in a different way because man, it drug this game out. It didn't shorten the game at all. And I think that was the intention to the rule changes back in 2018.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's just be real. The NCAA, I mean, they do dumb thing after dumb thing after dumb thing. I mean, I'm scared to know what the next proposal is. Is it a three-legged race? Is it musical chairs? There's no telling what they're going to come up with. Is it alternating field goals till someone misses? I mean, could we figure out something that has less to do with the game? I mean, I'm being sarcastic and I'm joking, but two-point conversions, I mean, that has absolutely nothing to do with the game that we just played. Like, I don't understand how that fits in the equation and
I think
whatever,
the
man.
kickers should play horse with kicking field goals from like
Right.
different positions on the field. That'd be really fun to watch, actually.
Yeah, hell yeah. And they like come out of like a bullpen with like intro music or something, Eye of the Tiger, and just this dude with the rec specs comes out. It's like, hell yeah, dude. That would be great. That would be way more entertaining than what I saw there. By the end of those overtimes, I was almost just like, all right, just pull the plug on this thing, man. Let's just get this over with one way or another. Quit fooling with my emotions. All right, we got a couple more games to talk about. Thank you all so much for watching. If you hadn't done it yet, hit that like button for me real quick. It helps us out a ton. I appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. We're about to finish up. Listen, hey, we'll be on tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow night. I've already said it a couple times, but make sure y'all are here because we'll have a really awesome show tomorrow. We're going to react to the college football playoff rankings that are going to come out on Sunday this week. We've got conference championship breakdowns that we're going to be doing, all that stuff. We want you guys to come and be included in that. So don't miss it. Come hang out with us after dinner. After you head on over to Mama Nim's and have dinner tomorrow, come and hang out with your boys at the First and Long College Football Show. All right. Arizona State absolutely thumps Arizona 49-7. They were the first team to clinch their berth into the Big 12 championship game. And for my money, Arizona State looks like the best team in the Big 12 to me right now. But I can't take any credit for that. I didn't have any. We did not think Arizona State would be in this position at this point in the season. You gotta clap your hands. You gotta. Actually, I got a button right here. Can y'all hear that? Can you on the show? Can y'all hear that when it claps like that? I have a little button that I can press over here. But y'all let me know in the comment section. But yeah, I mean, Arizona State, they look like the team. Scatabo is an absolute beast. If y'all go back and watch some of the highlights, guys, Scatabo is a freaking animal. If Georgia had a Scatabo, oh man. I mean, and you could plug him in on a bunch of teams and say that, but man, did it work, Derby? Did my button work? Because that would be really cool if my buttons worked. I have a laugh track for when we tell funny jokes, funny haha jokes. I have a kiss for whenever I want to kiss one of you guys.
This sounds like a Temu soundboard or something, like a Wish soundboard or one of those Chinese.
Don't you ever disrespect my Hainer Seek top of the line equipment that I've got out here. Derby said, yeah, it works. Hell yeah, dude. That's awesome. I'm so glad I can program some more on here. So that's cool. All right, let's keep it going. Iowa State takes care of Kansas State. Let's get a score update real quick on that Houston BYU game, because as we said, that has bearing on this somehow or another. I don't know.
24-10, BYU is up.
17 seconds left in the third quarter, guys. BYU's got the football on the BYU 20, 24-10. So looking like Iowa State is going to be making their way into that Big 12 championship game to face off with Arizona State. And I think that'll be the best matchup for sure. That'll be a interesting matchup, certainly. Because Iowa State takes care of Kansas State 29-21. We don't have to talk about Kansas State anymore, right? Congratulations, Iowa State. I mean, ran their program. It was freezing cold out there in the Midwest tonight, so I felt bad for some of them boys. UNLV takes care of Nevada. UNLV is going to be facing off against Boise State in the Mountain West. So winner of that's going to the playoffs, right? Loser of that not going to the playoffs. Don't you think, Mason? I mean, both
Yeah.
of them have a loss. So I wouldn't think that
I
a
would think
2-loss
so.
Boise or a 2-loss, obviously not a 2-loss at UNLV, but does a 2-loss Boise get in, guys? What do you think, Mason?
No. No.
I don't think so.
No. You gotta win the conference championship at this point because they don't have another win to really point to. I think. Yeah. I don't.
Well,
I don't see
UNLV
it.
would be their best win, right? They've already beat them once,
Mm-hmm.
and that's UNLV's only loss. And yeah, so it looks like Boise would be out of that sucker. Illinois took care of Northwestern. Memphis took care of Tulane, 34-24. Tulane is still going to be facing off with Army, but now it's going to be at Army rather than being able to host that AAC championship game. Memphis looks like a good team, y'all. I liked what I saw out of Memphis offensively, defensively. They were a good-looking squad. Boise State takes care of business, 34-18 over Oregon State, exactly what they needed to do. Ole Miss takes care of Mississippi State 26-14 in the Egg Bowl. Colorado takes care of Oklahoma State 52-0. Oklahoma State's an absolute laughing stock. Holy shit, they're bad. And then Oregon took care of Washington handily 49-21. Oregon owed a little bit of back pay, to Washington in that one. I felt a little bit of energy coming from that one, a little frustration from last year. And Washington was such a damn good team last year. It wasn't Oregon not being able to get over the hump or something, but Oregon really flexed their muscles on them today. And it showed on the scoreboard 49-21. Oregon, the undisputed regular season champ of all of college football, don't you think, Mason? They got to be.
Yeah, for the regular season for sure. Absolutely.
Oh wait,
I thought
I got a clap track. That's right.
I thought that Oregon kind of showed me a lot. They bounced back on offense this week, and going up against Washington's defense isn't, they're not good. They're not good, really on defense at all. I think their offense is good, but yeah, I was impressed. I thought the defense showed up and they kind of held Washington for the most part. What has been a kind of a surging offense for Washington here at the later part of the year. But yeah, Oregon, no doubt, number one team for a good reason.
I'm just reading some of the comments here. The wise man posted in the comment section, if Boise falls to UNLV, it could be Army if they win, I'm pretty sure. And I think you're right on that. Because Army is still only the one loss to Notre Dame. So technically, Army would be undefeated other than that loss to Notre Dame there. So it is possible that Army could kind of find their way in there. But UNLV is the one that really benefited because UNLV has a chance to now win their way, into that situation with their only loss being to Boise. And them being ranked already. Army's not ranked right now, so Army would have to jump, and Tulane is ranked. I don't see Army beating Tulane, so I don't think this is going to be a conversation that we have to worry about. And like Wiseman said in the comment section, and what I just said, UNLV is ranked higher at this point, so it seems like it wouldn't really work like that. Thanks for watching, Wiseman. I do appreciate it. All right. What else do we got? Penn State takes care of Maryland 44-7. We kind of talked about that one. We talked about Oregon. BYU still up 24-10. Houston's got the ball now. Did I miss anything, Mason? I don't think I missed anything.
Oklahoma, Missouri. That was a fun one. I mean, not Oklahoma. Arkansas and Missouri. That was
played in the snow. That was cool.
Pretty fun game there. Mizzou once again comes back, rallies late in the fourth quarter to win a football game. I mean, I don't know if I've seen a team this year do what they've done as far as winning late. That was like their third or fourth win in the fourth quarter this year. Pretty impressive. I mean, it does show like a lot of resilience for this Missouri team who's
Yeah.
who we thought was out of the top 25, but here they are at 9-3 with some pretty big wins, and definitely deserves to be in the top 25, I think, by the end of the year.
If you say so. I hate them. I hate them in the top 25. I don't think they have any business there. I think Arkansas looked like a bunch of cats out in a rainstorm out there in that
Yeah,
snow.
that if I had known it was going to be snowing like that, I never would have took them on the money line. They still should have won the game. I mean, Arkansas,
Yeah.
for as good as Missouri has been able to find ways to win, Arkansas this year has found ways to lose. They put the ball on the ground. I think they did it in the red zone
Well,
again this game, and
Talon Green is still running around carrying the football like this.
mm-hmm.
He hasn't learned any lessons, man. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, I don't know. That's just plain stupid. If you don't learn from your mistakes, that's just stupid. And he hasn't learned from his mistakes at all, and that's kind of concerning. I don't feel like Talon Green has gotten better as the years went on. I guess is kind of what I've got. I feel like he's kind of about the same as whenever he came in. And there's certain moments where he shines, and there's other moments where he really just tanks his own team. And like I said, they looked so lost out there on that snow. I mean, it was not good. Slipping all around. Mizzou looked a lot more equipped to handle that, but a good win for Mizzou in a good year. 9-3 is a good season. I don't care who you played or whatever. Missouri will absolutely take it, especially after the season that they had last year. Hell yeah, Drinkwitz will absolutely take it. Guys, I think that's going to about do it for us tonight. Y'all hit that like button on your way out real quick. Y'all have been an absolute blast to hang out with this evening. It's 1 a.m. here on the East Coast, so we're going to call it. But as I said, we will be on tomorrow. I'm thinking around 7:30 p.m. Eastern. It may be about 8 o'clock Eastern. Make sure you hit the bell whenever you subscribe, and that way you're notified whenever we go live, and you can come join us if you want to. We hope that you will. Again, thank y'all so much. Y'all been an absolute blast. I hope all your teams won by 100 this weekend. I hope you guys are all happy. Somebody's getting left out. Somebody's going to be unhappy over the next couple of weeks. Can't wait to figure out who that's going to be with you guys. Y'all all have a great night. What an awesome weekend of college football. Thanks again.